So, we have Mr. Michael McCartan from Duetto Research to tell us about big data and the personalized use of them. Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Panos. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Michael McCartan. I'm the Managing Director for a software as a service revenue strategy system. I'm the solution. It's called Duetto. Duetto started in Las Vegas. It was actually a company founded out of a challenge that two hoteliers on the Las Vegas Strip were having back in 2008. Obviously, at that time, it was they were in the depths of the biggest recession that hoteliers had ever experienced. And these two hoteliers, our founders of Duetto, realized that in order to, they had a choice. They could either drop their prices and attract business in any way that they could, or they could retain their prices, maintain their rate integrity, and look at alternative ways of driving business to their hotels. They researched and discovered a number of philosophies which they proved very successful at the Wynn Las Vegas, and they decided to leave Wynn after a number of years of applying these techniques and try them on other hotels. And the results were very similar, and as a result they then found investment to create Duetto, which is a platform that allows hotels in the broader community to share and utilize some of these techniques that they leveraged. A little bit about myself. In the early part of my career, the closest I came to a hotel was actually building one. I'm a civil engineer by training, but for the last 15 years I've worked primarily in hospitality distribution. I was with Pegasus Solutions for 10 years, and I'm sure many of you know Pegasus Solutions. And after that, I was the Chief Executive Officer of EMEA Rate Tiger, a channel management company. And I joined Duetto a year ago to take on the role of Managing Director in Europe to help expand and the footprint in Europe and support the customer base that we develop here. That's a bit cut off there. But what we'll cover today is three things. I just want to recap some of the distribution landscape, because it's quite important to understand the complexity that we operate in, and then the impact that that's having on our hotels, because it's quite staggering. Unless you see the facts, we all think that we're operating in a fairly robust economic environment. We're seeing ADRs are growing, but the reality is that hotels are in a worse situation now than they were in 2008, when we were in the worst recession that we'd ever experienced. And then I'm going to talk about these philosophies that we applied to Wynn Las Vegas and now available in the platform that we've developed. So over the last 40 years, the hospitality landscape in terms of shareholder ownership has changed. It used to consist mainly of owners, brands, and managers. But now with the emergence of the internet and the explosion of the internet, there's a new class of gatekeepers, people that control how and where people book. And these include the big OTAs, the intermediaries, lots of technology companies, lots of people offering new solutions to handle the complexity of the distribution, and the metamediaries. And all of these companies ultimately are taking share away from the owners of the hotels. What was once the profits of a hotel are now going to support these intermediaries, these OTAs, and these metamediaries. Before the explosion of the internet, the brands competed with themselves to attract customers to their hotels. They used to compete in terms of the quality of the stay, the guest experience, the quality of the facilities at the hotels, and they used to market themselves to attract that business. The relationship was directly between the brand and the consumer. But with the explosion of the internet, the point of entry for most consumers changed. It became the OTAs, and we sort of call the traditional brands the stay brands, and the new brands are the the booking brands. And these booking brands now, they have massive marketing budgets. They are able to proliferate the internet. They are able to capture the guest experience. And they've driven a wedge between hotels and their guests. And just a personal story that I like to retell is I was at a dinner party with some friends, people not from our industry, because in our industry we seem to be a little bit blinkered in our understanding of this problem. But this dinner party, someone said they'd just been to the Caribbean on a holiday, and they stayed, and someone asked them, where did you stay? Well, in fact, it was me, because I'm interested in hotels. And they said they stayed at an Expedia. And I said, no, you didn't stay at an Expedia, you booked through an Expedia. She said, no, I stayed at an Expedia. And for me, that was such an eye-opening moment, because I realized that the hotel brands are no longer owning that relationship with the guest. Even when they get to the hotel, they still think it was the online travel agents, the people that they engaged with during that pre-stay experience, that actually are fulfilling the stay at the hotel as well. And that's what they take away with them. And it's not just about the big OTAs. We know that the duopoly of Priceline and Expedia, with their massive marketing budgets, I think there's a figure that Expedia spent $3 million in $3 million in marketing last year. That's 4 times more than they spent in technology. And Booking.com spent $1.5 billion just on Google Ads last year. So these are massive, massive budgets. And there's no ways that hotels can compete. Even the biggest hotel brands, even with the recent news of Starwood and Marriott combining forces, most hoteliers do not have the marketing muscle to intercept and engage with the guests in a meaningful way. And then when we look at the new gatekeepers, the people that are going to control how and where people spend, with the emergence of mobile first becoming mobile only, people like Google and Apple are going to start playing a far, far more dominant role. And when you consider the size of these companies, this tsunami of change, this wave of change that we've experienced over the last decade is just going to accelerate and make it harder for hotels to reclaim the profits. And in the corner there you can see Airbnb, just a new stat. So even new sources of supply are starting to erode that as well. So the picture for hotels is quite daunting. And it's not just the number of sites out there that adds to the complexity. This is some research by Focusrite, and they say that on average, a guest planning their travel, not just hotels, but travel in general, are visiting up to 38 websites, and they use the slides are cut off there, but they're using 6.5 digital touch points. In other words, they're jumping from device to device and to device, and they're expecting that the experience from one device to another device is the same. They expect to be able to pick up where they left off and seamlessly continue their research and booking from one device to the next. But the good news is, whilst these guests are researching and booking hotels, they're visiting hotel websites 10 times. So all is not lost. There is an opportunity for hotels to actually engage with these travelers, because they are at some point stopping by the hotel's website. And I also just want to touch on the so-called millennials, because this is the biggest consumer group ever in the history of the world. In the US alone, it represents 80 million people. But there's a misconception about millennials. People believe that millennials are not brand loyal, and this is an incorrect fact. This is some research done by a company called Digital, and they discovered that, I think it was, it's cut off there, but it was something in the order of 65% of millennials consider themselves as brand loyal or more brand loyal than their parents. The thing to consider is what they consider loyalty. For us, in my generation at least, loyalty meant a solid brand that you could rely on and things like that. And you could accumulate points and go redeem them at some date in the future. But for millennials, it's all about authenticity. As a brand, you need to be human. You need to attach yourselves to human values, to to matters that matter to these people. If you're a boring company that's only focused on the bottom line, then you're not going to be appeal to this audience, and they're not going to attach themselves to you, to your brand. You need to have a voice. You need to have a position on things that matter to this audience. You also need to be involved in social networks. This audience communicates with their peers online, and if you want to be part of that conversation, if you want to be heard, you need to be part of that conversation online as well. So these guys are loyal. They're just loyal in a different way. And when it comes to loyalty programs, they don't want to go through long, laborious sign-up processes. They don't want to have to fill in lots of forms and ask for trivial details that they've already given to other people. They expect to be able to sign up to any loyalty program with a click of a button by using their Facebook profile. It has to be simple, it has to be easy to understand. And when it comes to being rewarded, they don't want those rewards to be in the form of points that they accumulate and then redeem later on. They want to be excited and delighted. They want to be surprised. They want you to tell them about an offer that they didn't even know they wanted, but only when you gave it to them did they say, wow, that's exactly what I needed. Why did that company know so much about me? How did they know that I wanted that? It's like when we go onto Amazon and we order a book. We buy that book and suddenly an ad pops up and says, people that bought this book also bought this and this book. And you go, wow, that's amazing. Those two books look really interesting. How did they know that? And that's how you have to excite and delight your customers. You need to anticipate what they want before they even knew they wanted it. So what are the ramifications of this change? We're in this very complex distribution landscape. It's changing very quickly. It's very dynamic. What does that mean? Well, the bad news is that our industry spend 3 to 5 times more than the airline industry or the car rental industry in acquiring guests. So we have to work much, much harder, spend much, much more money than car rental companies, than airline companies. And in part, that's due to the fragmentation of our industry. Even the big brands who represent maybe only represent 3,000 or 4,000 hotels. When you start looking at small groups and independent hotels, there's no ways that you can go to the negotiating table like the car rental companies do, like the airlines do, and negotiate no or very little commission. We're basically at the beck and will of these OTAs, and they command whatever commissions they feel like charging, or feel that they can get away with. And as I mentioned earlier, we like to pat ourselves on the back and say we're in a really good situation. Our industry is doing really well. ADRs are up, revenues are up, occupancies are up, we're doing really, really well. The reality is that we're no better off. In fact, we're worse off than we were in 2008. Yes, our revenues have increased by 20% since 2008, and this is up to 2012. But I've seen more recent data, and this trend is continuing. Yes, our revenues are up, but commissions are increasing at twice the rate. So when it comes down to profitability, we are actually producing less profit for our owners of our properties, than we did in 2008, a very, very different, challenging time for the hospitality industry. And that research was done by a company called Calibri Labs, and their conclusion was this, that RevPAR is not a good measure of hotel performance. We need to start looking at gross operating profit if we really want to understand the health of our hotel or hotels. So what is required to thrive? And this is a pretty gloomy situation or presentation of where we are. But all is not lost, because this is exactly the conversation that Patrick and Marco, the founders of Duetto, had in 2008. What can we do? We can't outspend, we can't outmuscle the OTAs, but there must be things that we can do that can drive more profit into our hotels. And what I'll share with you now are some of these tactics, and it's related to big data in part. I mean, not all of the solutions are big data related, a few are. And I like to call this revenue Judo. Judo is a martial art where size doesn't matter. You can have a really big opponent against a really small opponent. And as long as the small opponent has the mental agility, the mental alacrity to think and outwit their big opponent, they can win the match. in that situation where a small guy is competing with a big guy, it wouldn't make sense for the little guy to go and try and confront the big guy head on. He will lose every single time. So he's got to outsmart them. He's got to, when the big guy lunges at him, he's got to move out the way, trip him and let him fall on his face. Use the weight of the opponent to his advantage. And these tactics allow us to outcompete, or at least get our fair share of that online demand that exists out there, and not have it all channeled through the big online travel agents. So the first thing is to look at the new data sources. There's a ton of data out there, and we just have to be intelligent in the way that we use it. We need to redefine our revenue strategies. As an industry, the strategies that we use today are 15 years old. They were based on a situation, an environment which was very, very different. There weren't as many channels, there wasn't as much complexity, and the technology didn't support things that actually were practical. So we need to look at those. We also need to create a culture of collaboration. Hotels traditionally are very siloed. And this goes back to the day when we were stay brands. We would separate functions like sales, marketing, revenue management, operations into silos, because that made sense back then. In these days, we need to start acting and behaving like digital marketing companies. We need to break down the barriers, and we need to focus on revenue. Every single person in the organization needs to have a single objective focused on revenue. You need to break down those silos that exist. And then the last one is you need to connect with the guests in the booking process. As I said, that person, that friend of mine who said that she booked with Expedia, stayed with Expedia, means that that hotel did a very poor job with engaging with her online. The relationship with the guest starts long before the guest walks through your front door. So, big data. Historically, in revenue management, we use the history, last year's performance, to determine the future. It's by and large the single and only data source that traditional revenue managers have used. But it's crazy. I use the analogy of me saying to any one of you in the room, I'm going to give you a car, brand new Mercedes-Benz, and I want to drive from London to Paris. On one condition, I'm going to black out the windscreen. You will not be able to see what's in front of you. The only reference that you have in moving forward is to look in the mirror, in the rearview mirror. In other words, you can only use what's behind you to move forward. And that is exactly what hotels do today. Most hotels look at past performance, past trends, to determine future demand. It's a crazy situation. We wouldn't do it if we were driving a car, yet we do it when we manage our hotels. There's a ton of data out there that gives you an indication of future demand. In Athens, if you could see how many people were on the ground in Athens at any period in the future, because generally people book flights before they book hotels, you would have a very good insight into future demand in Athens. You can see where there are unusual spikes, where there are more people than usual staying in Athens, and you can also start marketing to those people. If all of those people are coming from China because they've lifted visa restrictions, you can start marketing to those people to capture your fair share of that market before those people even arrive. Don't leave it to chance. Proactively go and engage with those customers. But the most important data set, and there are various others that we can bring into this equation and bring into our thinking. But the most important data set is, in our opinion, is web traffic. We have some code that we put on the hotel's own booking engine, and we can track who's looking but not booking at a particular hotel. So if we looked at this hotel, so this hotel was using our software, they would be able to see at any future date how many guests are looking at a particular room type at a particular rate code but not booking. At the moment, the tip of the iceberg that a hotel has, the only insight that a hotel has into future demands is they're on the books. So let's say this hotel on the 21st of April next year had 5 reservations. They do not know if 1,000 people looked and 5 booked, or whether 10 people looked and 5 booked. That gives you a very different indication of future demand and people's sensitivity to price. If you, in the first scenario, 1,000 people looking at only 5 booking, you're pricing too high, your conversion rates are too low, you're not engaging the guests sufficiently well in that search process. If 10 people looked and 5 booked, then clearly your pricing is too low and you're not offering the right product to maximize your revenues. The second point is to redefine your revenue strategies. And I don't know how many hoteliers there are in the rooms here, but not if you agree. But the way that you manage your rooms today is you have a best available rate, and inside your PMS, you have all other rates linked and room types linked to that rate. Correct? Yes. And when demand for your hotel goes up, what do? You raise your bar rate. And all your other prices, all your other room types go up as well. When demand for your hotel is down, you drop your bar and all your other rates go down. We believe that that doesn't make economic sense, because once you've calculated the demand at your hotel by looking at these future data sets, and you've calculated the demand not just on your best available standard room, but on all your products, you will find that the demand for your different products is different on different days on the week. And therefore, having fixed modifiers, fixed amounts, or fixed percentages linked to bar means that you're leaving money on the table. I'll give you a very crude example. In a hotel, you may have a standard room and a suite. Your standard rooms might be selling out really, really quickly. What do? You lift your bar price for your standard room. But because your suite is linked to your standard room, and bearing in mind just you haven't sold any standard suites yet, you lift your bar rate, your price for your suite goes up, and now not only have you've effectively made a product that's not selling because it's probably too expensive, even further out of reach of the consumer. If you could determine demand for your suites and independently manage that difference and price differently, you could push your bar for your standard rate up and keep your suite price the same, or even drop the suite to encourage people to book that and convert. Now that principle applies not just on room types, but in products as well, where it allows you to maximize the price that you're offering to the person, depending on who's asking the question and the channel that you're distributing it through. This concept that we call open pricing effectively allows you to, let me just go to the next slide there. Allows you to calculate and dynamically change the prices. Now, one of the tricks that the OTAs do is they will, when you send them a best available rate and an advanced purchase rate, what they will do, if you've put a restriction on your advanced purchase rate because you don't want to sell out on a busy Tuesday, what the OTAs will do will take your advanced purchase rate on the Monday. They don't care about minimum length of stays. They know that the price is available. They'll take the best available rate on the Tuesday, and they'll take the advanced purchase rate on the third day. They'll blend those rates and they'll offer a product that you can't offer on your own website. Why? Because the person wanting to stay 3 nights, when they do a search on your own website, cannot find the advanced purchase rate. It's closed. You've put a restriction on it. These OTAs are very cleverly blending. With open pricing, because you can dynamically yield the difference between the products, you are able to compete and offer this blended pricing and effectively compete with the OTAs. It also means that you never have to close channels. We don't believe in restrictions. We don't believe in closing channels. You control price or demand by price. Simplistically, the only lever that determines whether someone books with you is whether the price. So if you're booking too quickly, raise the price. If you're booking too slowly, drop the price by product. And that will control the demand, and that ensures that you're getting the maximum revenue for every day of the week at your hotel. I mentioned that hotels do a very poor job at collaborating. This has its roots in history. Generally, the revenue managers have come from an operational background. They're the people in a hotel that understand how to load rates in PMSs, that understand how to load rates on extranets and do channel management. And because of their practical experiencing in setting up and managing rates, they've been given the job of revenue management. We believe that revenue management should actually be part of the marketing function, and certainly in the Wynn Las Vegas case, marketing was part of revenue management, so the tables were turned. And the reason that they did that was to break down these barriers. They got fed up of the marketing department going out and creating a campaign, creating a nice banner, spending money on Google ads, having guests click through to the website only to find that there was no availability or the product that they were promoting wasn't there because it was a peak period for the hotel and was no longer on offer. If the marketing department was sharing the same data sets, was looking at the same information, could identify the weak periods in the hotels, could identify the source markets, and collaborate with the revenue managers, they would be able to provide the right product to the right people and not waste dollars and euros on marketing that ultimately didn't result in a booking and created an unhappy customer. We go one step further, and this is a trend that's happening more and more in hotels, where not only is our revenue and marketing coming together, but actually in some of the forward-thinking hotels, some of the new generation of hotels, they are creating whole revenue departments. Every single function in a hotel is reporting into a chief revenue officer. Sales, marketing, digital marketing, and revenue. And they're all collaborating and they're all making decisions based on the shared data. They're all looking at the same KPIs and they're all being measured on the same thing. They're no longer independently measured on occupancy and RevPAR and profitability. There's a single measure within the hotel operation. Everyone is driving towards a single metric, and that makes the operation more efficient. I was at a conference recently where a big brand in Europe, the digital marketing guy, VP of digital marketing, was lamenting about the fact that he only had 15 people in his team, and there was just no ways that he had the resources to go online and provide a consistent experience, that he could respond to all of the reviews, etc., etc. And someone in the audience said to him, "How many salespeople have you got in your organization?" And he said, 3,000. And the guy said, "That is crazy. The digital marketplace is where you need to attract and engage with customers. The old traditional sales approach of having people knock on doors is still relevant, but to have such a disbalance between digital marketing people and direct sales people doesn't make sense. The future of our industry relies on us recognizing the importance of digital marketing and supporting that with the right resources." In fact, one of the CEOs who was at the conference of one of these new age companies said, for him it was a Kodak moment. Kodak dominated the industry, the photographic industry. It had something like 90% of market share, and yet it literally disappeared overnight. And he said if hotel companies do not recognize the need to change and become digital marketing companies in their engagement with hotels, the industry as we know it will change irreparably. We will all be owned effectively by online travel agents. So this is all about the internet of guests. We need to understand who's looking at our hotels and engage them in a meaningful way. And the way that we do that, if you recall, we said that when people are going through this journey, they are stopping at hotel websites. But an interesting statistic from a company called Striptease said that 70% of customers would stop at the hotel's website if they knew, if they felt comfortable, if they felt reassured that the hotel was giving the best deal. And I don't necessarily mean the best price, the best deal. We need to give hotels a reason to book direct. We need to and the way that we do that is starting to integrate our customer relationship information, what we know about the guest, what we know about the assets on our hotel, and start leveraging those to provide a guest experience that they cannot get from the OTAs. A very simple example, which doesn't include price, is a company, it's called HTL Hotels in Stockholm. It's a new age company. If you can go on and you can check in online, you don't have to stand in a queue. You can arrive at the hotel and you can go straight up to your room and you can use your mobile phone to open the door. But you can only do that if you book through the hotel's own website. That is a very simple technique a simple advantage, a simple reason that you're giving the guests to book direct through you and not have to pay the OTAs the commission. In a sense, if you can do that, the OTAs and the meta search engines just become search engines for you that drive traffic to your own hotel. What our guests and what our millennials certainly do not want is undifferentiated benefits. They don't want me to receive some bland 20% discount randomly from a hotel. They want for the hotel to understand who I am, and at the point that I'm in the journey to actually engage with me and say, here's an offer that is unique to you, unique to your profile, and unique to our hotel. And the way that you do that is start, as I say, understanding the value of your guests. If you can understand what your guest spends when they get to your hotel, you can start differentiating and offering them price. And this does require for them to sign on to a loyalty program so you don't break any parity agreements or upset the OTAs. But if it's a simple sign-on process and you can use the data about the guest, you can start offering unique deals to them that would encourage them to book direct. So in this example, the guy on the left, he spends no money at my hotel. He's a cheapskate, he just stays there and he leaves. So when I offer him a discount, bearing in mind like Google have with the Genius programs, one-click loyalty program, I can offer him a rate of €195, which is €4 cheaper than the OTAs. But the guy on the right, when he comes and stays at my hotel, he spends $240 in restaurants, in bars, in whatever. I can use that additional non-room spend to supplement a further discount on my room. So at the time that this guy's searching, I'm offering him a £175 discount that no OTA can offer him. I'm not in breach of any agreements. I'm not upsetting the OTAs because I'm offering a cheaper price on the website to everyone. It's unique to him. That demonstrates real loyalty, and that guy's going to come back to my hotel website every single time he wants to book my hotel. Now this can extend beyond just pricing. You can start offering vouchers, amenities. A company in Hong Kong, a customer of ours, any customer that books direct gets a free Uber ride. The company account, they will pay for Uber to bring the guest to their hotel. That's a great additional value add that's going to encourage guests to book at your hotel. Last slide, I promise. Proof is in the pudding. We take all of the results from our customers that are fully deployed, and we calculate their increase in revenue against their market segments. And I think the little thing. Yeah. So from basically Q1 of 2014, these are our customers and their increase on year-on-year revenue versus their comp set. And just by applying these simple techniques that really, at the end of the day, require a mental change rather than a physical change, although there are physical elements to it, this philosophical change will drive increments of 5 to 15% additional revenue to your hotel without fundamentally changing the way that you run your business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. Apart of all the interesting stuff that you have said, I heard that you are going to deliver Judo lessons to anyone interested during the break. Okay, very, very interesting. Seeing the hotel and all departments as revenue sources and subsidizing each other. That's an interesting idea. So, questions for Michael. Mr. Barbutis?
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I would like you to elaborate a little bit. You said before that every single person in the organization contributes to the revenue, or should contribute to the revenue. How does this apply to the digital world? Can you say a few things?
Yeah, it's basically how you look at your segmentation. We blandly, as revenue managers, look very black and white at revenue segments. We don't necessarily understand and differentiate between different channels and where the demand is and how we price on those different channels. So by engaging with the marketing department and understanding more about the personas, the people who are on those channels, and using that intelligence to more intelligently segment and price, allows you to maximize that. It will create additional revenues. So for example, in an opaque channel, we would just offer, all opaque channels are effectively the same and they link to bar. But if through this open price methodology and understanding specifically who those channels are, working with the marketing department, you can actually start yielding one opaque channel differently to another. So you can offer a different discount potentially to one channel versus another channel.
Next question. Okay. Michael, I really thank you very much for all this valuable feedback you have given us. You can always ask any questions to Michael afterwards, anyone. Thank you very much.